It is in literature that the concrete outlook of humanity receives its expression. Alfred North Whitehead. Good morning, one and all present here. Respected dignitaries, Dr. T. Somashekar, Chairman, Indian Academy Group of Institution, Dr. Shridi Parthasarathy, COO, Indian Academy Group of Institution, Dr. E. Jerome Xavier, Principal, Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous, Resource Person, Dr. Prakash MC, Retired Principal, Vidyavartaka Sangha First Grade College, HOD of English Department, Professor Geeta Ravi, my dear faculty members and my dear students, a warm welcome. I deem a privilege to welcome you all on a virtual platform for the national webinar on intricacies of Girish Karnad's play, Perspectives on Tughlaq. I request Professor Geeta Ravi to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Jaffer. Literature speaks the language of imagination, and study of literature is supposed to train and improve imagination. Northrop Fryer. Good morning to one and all present here. I'm glad and privileged to introduce a simple and a large-hearted gentleman who has put in 37 years of service in the field of higher education. Dr. Prakash completed his studies in Mysore, a first rank holder in BA, and completed MA with first place and moved to Bangalore for better prospects and joined Sri Vidyavardhaka Sangha First Grade College, Bangalore. Sir completed PhD from Bangalore University. His research was on the theory of the absurd in Western literature and its influence on Kannada literature, under the guidance of Dr. Devaspati Hegde. Sir is a popular figure in the Bangalore teachers community. Sir was a former chairman for Board of Examiners, English, Bangalore University. Sir is a founder president of Bangalore University English Teachers Association. Sir was invited as a resource person to speak on several topics like group dynamics, leadership, communication skills, spoken English, comparing, public speaking, etc. And also delivered several talks on virtual platforms. These days, Sir is busy in presenting his ideas on virtual platforms. Every day, at least 2 or 3 sessions Sir will have. Sir took initiative to design the curriculum on personality development and conducted many programs for 28 years for the students in his institution. Sir has designed and conducted summer camps for tribal children at Viveka Tribal Center Learning, Hosahalli, Hegadadevanikote. Dr. Prakash contributed towards translation in a very commendable way. To list a few, Birds, Bride Comes Home, translation of Dr. K.S. Narasimhaswamy's 50 poems into English. Song of Life, translation of Dr. K.S. Narasimhaswamy's 25 poems in English. Poetics, translation of Alamkara Shastra by Dr. R. Ganesh into English. Anklets, translation of Dr. K.T. Ellappa's Kadalige Kalisida Deepa into English. Nenapina Chitragalu, translation of Down Memory Lane of M.V. Ghorpade into English. Translation of 3 books on teaching learning disabled children, published by Navakarnataka. An original work in Kannada on responsibilities of parents of college students. Sir is revered and recognized for his humble gesture of conducting free classes for the underprivileged students for more than 30 years. Sir, I am humbled to have introduced you to the gathering on this platform. It just reminds me of Oscar Wilde's lines. I quote, "I regard the theatre as the greatest of all art forms. The most immediate way in which a human being can share with another the sense of what it is to be a human being. Unquote. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We are eagerly waiting to listen to you on intricacies of Karnat's play, Perspectives on Tughlaq. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, madam. Respected authorities of this great institution, and Mrs. Geeta Ravi, who has invited me here, and also who has showered, I would say, exaggerated, hyperbolic words on me. Anyway, my time is very limited, so I'll try to cover it up as quickly as possible. We have taken up Girish Karnad, a playwright, an actor also, and a film director, drama play director. He was from actually Mangalore, grew up in North Canara, later Dharwad and all those things. Now that's important because he had a lot of English education and his mother tongue was Konkani. He learned to enjoy plays when he was a young boy in Sirsi. That's how he got exposed to the world of theatre. Anyway, very important aspect of his upbringing is that his Kannada is generally, as critics of Karnad say, is motivated by the English syntax. This being a sort of mixed up thing, it's hard to have a very identifiable Kannada dialect, flavor of Kannada dialect in his plays. It's not very consistent also. Many people say that his are English sentences translated into Kannada. Sometimes it is difficult to follow. For example, in this same play, Tughlaq, there is a word about, there is a sentence on, this is not my hobby, chata alla, vyavasaya, he uses the word. Vyavasaya is used in our places to mean agriculture, but there it has been used in the sense of vocation, a profession. So this sort of difference is there. Hence, there is a sort of odd vocabulary and odd structure. But let's note one thing, that there is no dearth of poetic descriptions and statements. For example, in Yayati, there is a sentence, Bedakillada dariyalli sagabahudu, kanasillada dariyalli sagabahude. We may tread the path where there is no light, but can we tread a path where there is no dream, is the question. Now, in this same play, the washerman, Aziz, says that the dirt that has been washed by a washerman, a religious guru has not done. That sort of explanation. Now, when we come to his plays, now, this whole point on language I mentioned for one specific reason, that when you happen to read his plays in English translation, it's quite hard to feel these nuances, linguistic nuances, and understand. That is the weak point, or there is a drawback in reading his translations. Whoever might have translated it, he himself has translated them. Now, as we see, his plays are based on mainly mythology, folklore, and history. There is only one social play to his credit, Anju Mallige. Now, this has a big advantage for him, a great advantage. He interprets the sources with new insights, and he applies them to modern thoughts, modern ideas. But we should remember one fact, that even this influence on him of mythology, folklore, or history has been through the channel of English. This is quite an interesting thing. For example, his Hayavadana, he came to know about Hayavadana through Thomas Mann's story, The Transposed Heads, though the original story is from India. Then his Agni Mattu Male, fire and rain, as it has been translated. For that, he picked the theme from Rajagopalachari's, Rajaji's English translation version of Mahabharata. So, not from the original or Indian Mahabharata in that sense. Now, this speaks a lot about the source of his material. Anyway, now what happens is, when he has taken up his place of history, we should know one thing, that he collects his details from a lot of sources, which can be called authentic sources. And then those details by themselves do not work out for something. The way he harnesses those details is important. I'll explain it against the background of Tughlaq. Now, for example, when we come to Tughlaq, he studied the caravan, the history of the caravan of Turks by Ishwari Prasad, studied Cambridge history of India. He read through the writings of tourists like Batuta and Barni. Now, all these things, and studied books on Islam. Now, what details did he pick from there? For example, about Tughlaq, he picked some of these details, that he was a great Persian scholar and he was able to quote those poets as and when he needed. He was well versed in the Quran and he could quote the Quran wherever he wanted. And he also insisted that his officers should study Quran very well and should be able to quote Quran. He did not tolerate, though a king, an emperor, he did not tolerate the interference of religious leaders in his administration. And in fact, whenever there was a conflict between the two, if it was a conflicting interest, he would stand by his own decisions, wouldn't care for them. Now, some of the other details he got from there are, those who have read Tughlaq will be able to immediately connect it to what happens in the play. It seems a Hindu once complained against the emperor himself that his brother had been killed unjustly. And there, Tughlaq stood in the dock, in the court of law, without his weapons on. And finally, when he was found to be guilty, he gave compensation to that Hindu, it seems. Similarly, a Muslim once gave a complaint that his property had been confiscated unjustly. And when it was found correct and the Qaji said it should be returned, it seems Tughlaq returned it. Then he is shifted. All of us have known about Tughlaq as a mad king, an insane fellow. He shifted the capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, though his inner intention was perhaps to have a control over South by shifting the center of the capital to a more central place. Now, the incident of Ain-e-ul-Mulk, whom we come across in Tughlaq, was there in his true life also. He was an efficient ruler of a province, but when he found that he was too popular and against him, he finally defeated him, brought him here, and he made him a gardener in his palace, it seems. But eventually what happened, he was unable to control himself. The country became unwieldy to him. His own empire was unwieldy to him. He was not able to stop the strong flow of the results of his own actions. And he knew that it was a downward fall that he had realized. And finally, on his way to a war, he died of fever. Now, these are the facts. And if we go through Tughlaq, we may see how many of those facts actually Carnad has used in his play. But we should remember one thing, that these facts brew into a poetic recipe in Carnad. They are not just taken as facts. Instead, they are used to build the whole play. Now, it may be a character from history, but Carnad sees the character not as a historical character, but as a human being. The challenges that a human being has to face, the loneliness that a human being suffers from, anybody for that matter, a human being who has death as a challenge to him. But one difference is that the human beings that he sketches, of course, one Tughlaq, then Tipu Sultan is there. Now, for example, Tughlaq himself, okay, he may be a human being, but we should know that he is an extraordinary human being. Not just scholarship, etc., but by virtue of his position. He's a powerful person. After all, he is an emperor. Hence, it may be hard for us to say that every individual human being, a common person, may have to face that. Now we have Shakespeare's tragic heroes with us, who may be compared with a character like Tughlaq, created by Carnad. We have such tragic heroes as Macbeth, King Lear, Hamlet, Othello. But with the possible exception of Macbeth, who remains powerful and a king all through, though at moments of his pain and plight, he suffers like rather a typical human being. The other kings, King Lear, Hamlet, etc., they project before us a common man's problems and a common man's sufferings, which they would have suffered from even if they were normal human beings. But they suffer it more because they are either princes or kings, or maybe persons in a very high position. Now, when you go through the play, for this character building and all that, we observe that Carnad must have been influenced a lot by Shakespeare's tragic heroes of this sort. But as critics have said, Shakespeare, as Johnson says, Shakespeare has not created kings and queens. He has created men and women. Now, Tughlaq is not a typical representative in that sense of a common man. The problems that he faces may be those of a common person, but they are the typical problems faced by a person in power, a man in power, the loneliness that a man in power suffers from, the peculiar challenges that a man in power has to face. Because a man in power has a problem. The problem is that the fear of becoming a powerless person one day. And if that threat of becoming powerless is there before him, the challenges he faces are different. Just like a person who is sitting on the back of a lion or a tiger has to be worried about. Until he sits on the tiger's back, he is safe. But once he gets down, he will be devoured by the tiger. That's the problem. But when it comes to the massacres, etc., that Tughlaq deals with at the end of the play, merciless and mad massacres, we suddenly remember Macbeth, who also does it in his insanity, in his madness. But one thing we may remember, when I say power, it need not be a king's power always. Let's know that even among common people, there may be powerful positions. Just like you may have the head of an institution. He has such problems. A simple politicians may also have such problems. So when we say problems of power, we need not think that is only this sort of king, but anybody who has some power. Now, what happens in this play is Tughlaq's challenges, conflicts develop with his when he is face to face with his ministers, with the pontiffs, with the noblemen, with other kings. But interestingly, and that's very important, he has to be in face to face with a common man too. These two common men, Aziz and Azam. Aziz, a washerman. Azam, a simple pickpocket, a thief. Now, these two represent the common men that the king has to face. Now, there are many perspectives from which this play Tughlaq may be seen, but I have taken one particular theme here so that we may be able to do a little bit of justice to that. Because speaking of every aspect of the play is very hard. The theme I have taken up for discussion today after this background is the play which is in the play, or let's call it the way game has been used in the play, within this play. The game here, literally a game, but more than that, it is also a metaphor. It grows into a metaphor in the play. Now, do we have other plays any other play which can be compared like that. Adamov, a playwright, Adamov wrote a play called La Ping Pong. Ping Pong is table tennis. La Ping Pong. There is a machine and all those things. And finally, how they are absorbed into the play and how the player also become a part of the machinery is the whole concept there. Samuel Beckett wrote a play called The End Game. But the difference there is that they have taken a game as a metaphor and the whole play is about the game. But in Carnard, in the play, that game comes in, that real game, metaphoric game, a game which is literal is chess there, used over there, and it was presented likewise on the stage also. But when it becomes a metaphoric game, it becomes a game of different facets, different aspects. It becomes a political game. It develops into a political game, and though it retains its entity of being a literal game, it gets transformed into a metaphor. Now, what is this game? Let's use the word sport also. When a game is played with fun, which is done by Tughlaq actually, it becomes a sport, a fun. Philosophically speaking, the Indian language for that is Leela. We say that for God, the whole universe is his sport. It's a Leela, it's an action, it's play in action. Now, a game, as all of us know, has certain characteristics. A game is a rivalry between two persons, or maybe more also, anyway, two teams at least. And whenever there is a game, we have a winner and a loser. We have the great sportsman spirit to appreciate the winner, or the winner, vice versa, appreciates the loser also, that you played well. When you have a game, you have certain rules. A game has rules, and you are expected to follow the rules. If you break the rules and win, perhaps no one will call it proper victory, it becomes match fixing. But many times to win a game, you have to use deceptive methods also. I don't say it is justified, but it is used many times. So instead of playing the game with all honesty, many people use cheating also in between. But to win your game, you are expected to know two things. One, yourself. The other one, your opponent. Knowing the opponent means gauging the opponent, esteeming him, gauging him. How do you gauge an opponent? You should know his strength and you should know his weak points, his weaknesses also. It's when you know the weaknesses of the opponent that you are able to strike at the weak point, at the vulnerable point. I am reminded of Sri Krishna of Mahabharata. He knew the weaknesses of his opponents very well. He knew how to stop Bhishma. He knew where to strike Drona. He knew how to defeat Karna, and he knew their weaknesses very well. And that is how he is able to motivate the Pandavas into their victory. But the game in this play is not, it has all these aspects, but the game has different dimensions. As I said earlier, it's a political game. It's such a political game that it's a drifting current, drags in, absorbs others also who are perhaps unwilling to take part in the game, as it happens in the case of Tughlaq's stepmother. Maybe she didn't want to take part in it, but she's drawn into it. More than her, because she wants to play a role also sometimes, because she is also perhaps thirsty of power. There is Barney, who is a philosopher, and he observes that without his knowledge and without his willingness either, he is drawn into the game. And he speaks of punishment to be given to that washerman. And one more thing of this game that it is played differently by different persons. You have the master player there, Tughlaq, and you have Najib, his minister, who plays it in a different way. We have Ratan Singh, who is a merchant actually, an Amir, one of them, and he plays it in a different way. The stepmother plays it in a different way. But interestingly enough, there are two common men, Aziz and Azam, one a washerman and the other one a thief, who are the crowns of this game, especially Aziz, who is able to overthrow the greatest player, Tughlaq himself finally. Different people play it in different ways. Now this, in the case of a game, there is one problem. If you don't follow the game, you will not be able to play it. So in this play also, there are a few who do not follow the game completely because it's a political game. Such people stand away from it. Now, how has this metaphor of game been presented in the play? As it's obvious. It has been presented through chess. And it's both a fact and a metaphor. It is real as well as a metaphor. And there is a recurrent reference to the game throughout. One of the most important aspects of that is that Tughlaq himself is passionate about chess. He's passionate. He's so passionate that if somebody plays it better, he's prepared to give up his kingdom also to that person. Now let's begin to see how it happens. It happens all through the play. All through the play it goes on happening. Chess is, this game is, this playing against each other is present. It's current throughout the play. Now we have Aine-ul Mulk, who is a popular person in his province. And it was said that Tughlaq didn't appreciate it. He's being very popular. But there is some conflict between the two. Look at the way Tughlaq has been working on a particular tricky problem in chess, and he's so happy, proud of himself that he has solved that problem. But he says, admitting his defeat very appreciatively, with a lot of, very sportively he admits his defeat. He said, for 3 months, he tells his mother-in-law, I worked hard to solve this problem, and I showed it to Aine-ul Mulk. He said, good. And after a while, he looked at it a little more, and said, there is a mistake in it. What? I asked him. And with one point, he overthrew my work of 3 months, he says, and I forgave him, and I gave him back his kingdom. I didn't. Stepmother cannot understand what he is doing. He is appreciating him as a sportsman. But remember, friends, he doesn't appreciate him as a politician there, because Aine-ul Mulk wins in the chess game. But already Tughlaq is playing another political game with him. It's a different chess, because he's planning to defeat Ul Mulk. It's a different game. Now, and he tells her, what is it that you are playing? He says, yeah, this is another chess. He says, it's another chess. But one thing, I'm not playing it with pawns. I'm playing it with soldiers, he says. And she says, I don't understand. Political game and real game. And what does he do? Of course, the initial thought, the seed of the thought is sown by his minister Najib. There is Sheikh Imamuddin, who is a great person and who has been speaking a lot against Tughlaq. He is a critic, strong critic, pungent critic, and all that is there. But Najib says, you should know one thing, both of you resemble each other. And there is a trick involved, a war trick. Immediately Tughlaq appreciates him and he says, I have never come across a villain like you. You are the greatest shaitan I have come across. But Najib does the job of only suggesting the trick. But Tughlaq develops it into a massacre, makes him dress like himself, falls at his feet to go and talk for peace. But actually what happens is, he knows, Tughlaq knows very well, his soldiers numbering 4,000 cannot defeat that 30,000 people. That's why he has hidden himself somewhere. This Sheikh Imamuddin is projected as Tughlaq and he shot it. But from behind this man comes and just massacre. It is a Holocaust, as Ratan Singh describes. And he tells them, you thought that he was sending him there for peace, but it was a game altogether different he was playing over there. This is what happens. So game after game, game behind game, games overlap each other. When one game is going on, there is another game already brewing within him. But Tughlaq knows very well which game has to be played when. When Barni comes there, and what is this? He asks him, what is this? And the stepmother says, go and ask him and all that. Immediately Tughlaq says, Barni is a historian. He plays with shadows, not real persons. He will not understand it. But Najib is there, our minister. He plays with bone, blood and flesh. He understands this, he says. Look at the way different people playing different games and how wonderfully we shall appreciate his intelligence. May not be his inhuman ways. Tughlaq plays a double game over there and achieves his goal, his aim, finally. But what a mean game he plays with Sheikh Imamuddin. He has himself got it announced that he is going to give it law talk. He will give a lecture and it is against the king. Facts will be spoken. And what is Tughlaq doing? Standing over there. He is the first audience to listen to his criticism. Imagine an emperor listening to his criticism. But no one turns up because he says, you didn't understand. When I myself announced that all of you should come and stand over there, listen to him, his criticism of the emperor, immediately people think that it is a trick by the emperor to catch hold of those who are against him, the traitors. Immediately that person, Sheikh Imamuddin, is surprised. He says, then did you make use of me as a pawn in your hands? No, I didn't do it, he says. But he does know one thing, that though people were announcing that they should go and attend, soldiers were going to individual houses and telling them, if you go there, you will be killed, put to death. Look at the way he's playing. What sort of different types of play take place here. At the next level, you have Ratan Simha. Ratan Simha knows the secrets. And under his leadership, the Amirs want to conspire against the emperor. And it is Ratan Simha who gives a suggestion. Catch him at the time of prayer. Don't allow him to go to the masjid. Catch him in the palace itself. And when he's praying, he keeps the sword aside. And he is unarmed. He's unarmed. He doesn't have weapons. Then you kill him. Immediately they say, only a Hindu can think of these things, they say. Anyway, that is done. But funny thing is that there are letters have been sent into the palace explaining that this conspiracy is taking place. And it is signed by Ratan Simha himself. Whether actually Ratan Simha has done it or Tughlaq has, or someone else has done it, we don't know. But that's what shows. And then when he falls at their feet and asks them to accept this shifting the capital to Daulatabad and his plans of introducing copper coins and such things. But that doesn't happen. But he knows that Shahabuddin has led the conspiracy. But when they are all ready to kill him, before that, his soldiers come and kill all of them. In fact, Shahabuddin is stabbed death by Tughlaq himself, stabs him many times and kills him many times, actually, to the extent that the minister has to caution him. How long, how many times will you stab a dead body, he says. But he has killed him. He's surprised by what's happening. But after that, he says, how are you going to announce the death of this person? What will his father feel? He says, why should his father come? Beautiful, very simple, he says. Very simple, announce. What should he announce? That Shahabuddin is a martyr. What did he do? When the other conspirators tried to kill the emperor, Shahabuddin came in between, fought against them, killed many of them, and in the process, he sacrificed his life for the sake of the emperor, a great person, and let there be a great monument, let there be a procession, let there be everything. Bharani, who is looking at the historian Bharani, cannot digest it. And he says, can't even the dead escape from your politics? But he understands how, what should I say, how magnificent in one sense, but how terrible a game politics is. He understands that. What a tricky game it is. This is what is happening with the stepmother also. She doesn't like the minister's hold over, the minister's power, and she has got him killed. Tughlaq is not very sure that she has got him killed, but he thinks so. But she is into the game, please note. But unfortunately, she is not playing it very well. She is playing an imperfect game, hence gets caught. And Tughlaq doesn't know what to do. He says, stone her to death where 4 streets meet. She says, kill me if you want, but don't kill me in this mean manner, in this cruel manner. He doesn't listen. Now, when these things are happening, we should know one thing. Interestingly enough, very peculiarly, Tughlaq thinks that he is playing games against games. If there are some games against him, he is playing his games against them as an underplay. Beneath all that he is playing. But interestingly, he doesn't realize that behind him also, even without his understanding, some common people are playing their games. And the games are against his games. They are actually opposed to his games and they are playing. Now let's understand from this point of view, Aziz and Azam, friends they are. But I said initially itself, if you want to win in a game, you should know your opponent. It's not sufficient if you know your strength, you should know your opponent's weakness also, because your opponent's weakness is your strength. And this is what Aziz knows, a brilliant fellow who understands the psychology of this caliph, of this emperor, king. While planning for copper coins, etc., Tughlaq also plans. He is very upset that at the time of prayer, he had to kill these people and they had planned to kill him. That's why he announces that, though he is for prayer, he announces that there should not be any prayer at all. But endlessly no prayer, people will not accept it. For that he says, till the great messenger of Khalifa comes here, puts an end to that time. People will not accept endless conditions. Fine. So when simultaneously, when Tughlaq is playing his games, Aziz, a washerman, his counter games are going on. Knowing that Tughlaq has a weakness to show himself off to be a very just, fair person, even if it is against himself. He comes in the guise of a Brahmin. Having paid a Brahmin who has lost his land, a few silver coins, he has come here and said that it is his land. And he is so thrilled. Who? Tughlaq is excited, though this scene is not shown on the stage. He's excited that he has an opportunity to show off to the world how great, how just, how fair he is. And that weakness he has understood. This is the interesting point. That's why he says, I shouldn't come like a Muslim. If I come like a Muslim, that will not give the emperor the thrill of being fair. How does he show the world that he's fair? That's why I should come like a Brahmin. And he comes like a Brahmin and wins that case. But after that, now Azam has come, who is a wonderful thief, very expert, great thief. No doubt he's expert in his job, in his profession, let's call it if you want, because he says, I mean, it is not, he says, I have to give up your hobby, or haven't you given up this passion for that? He says, no, don't call it a bad habit. Don't call it a bad habit. It is a vocation. It's a profession, he says. Such a wonderful profession, expert, professional he is that Once he had met his uncle, it seems, and the uncle knew this fellow's ways. That's why he says, throughout the meeting, he had held my two hands together so that I should not steal the purse filled with coins, which was there beneath his pillow. But he says, I came out, but that fellow didn't realize I had come out with the with the purse of coins. Still, he is a clever fellow. But Carnot shows us there's a difference in playing games also. What you may call levels of playing games. Azam can at the most be a clever thief, but he can't understand better concepts. Aziz's concepts are different altogether. This is what is happening there. Aziz explains his plan. He says, not stealing money. After having come here, I understood that this is not the way of life. Rajakarana, he uses the word in Kannada, must have been used as politics in English, 8-letter word. In Kannada, it is a 5-letter word. He says, I understood, 5-letter word, wonderful. What do you get by cheating, he says. I have cheated in my rags because he's a washerman, clothes. But that's all that is nothing. All that is nothing. But in politics, he says, even half the intelligence that you use in cheating in your washing profession, even if you use 50% of that intelligence, you can do something. You can become a great officer and all that. So he says, after that, when shifting has to take place, he becomes an officer there, a small one. And he is able to handle he has to dispose the dead bodies, makes money there also. He has to give license to people to go. There also he makes money. In different ways he makes money. And then making money is fine. When coins are there also, copper coins, there also he makes money. And that I'll explain a little later. But comes to know that there is Abbasid Caliph's great grandson coming over there, for whom they were waiting. And this man is great. Tughlaq, he says, he has come. For him, it's a play again, because his arrival is the time for him to stop the rule he had, the prohibition he had exerted on prayers. He says, then we can start the prayer and all that. He has to fall at his feet and all that. He wants to make a show before people that he has become a good person. He has to win people somehow, So he is waiting for that great grandson of Abbasid Khalif to come. And Aziz comes to know. And accidentally that fellow comes and meets him. He's a poor fellow. He doesn't have anything. And Aziz goes to the extent of killing him. And he becomes the great grandson of the Caliph. Azam doesn't understand what's happening here, but he is welcomed by the emperor. He is welcomed by the emperor, and before everyone, he falls at his feet. But funny thing, he meets him, and at a weak moment, Tughlaq is able to make out that this fellow is not the great grandson of that man, because another person has been killed over there and all that, he says. So he asks him, who are you? Tell me. For a moment, Aziz shivers, because he knows the cruelty of the king. But he says, no, I'm a washerman. He explains to him, I'm a washerman. Why? What did you do? He says, don't you remember me? Look at the courage of the person. Don't you remember me? Do you remember that you gave great justice to a Brahmin person and all that when he had lost his land? Yeah, he says, I was that Brahmin, he tells him. Remember, he says, you have been thinking of action, but I have been setting that action to words later. Whatever you said, might try to make use of that. I can appreciate your imagination, he tells him. I can appreciate your imagination. So you are great in that sense, tells him. So he says, sir, he tells him, my lord, don't be taken away. Don't be taken away by the idea that I am born in a small clan or a low clan. Those who are born in low clans also have risen to great levels. Don't remember, he's puncturing him because he's referring to this slave dynasty there. And he says, I have observed every action of yours. In fact, he says, I am your disciple. And as your disciple, I have executed everything, having followed you every step of yours. You know, I went to the place where there was famine, he says. Barney, who is standing beside, that's what I said, Barney is also dragged into this game without his knowledge. He says, please kill him, punish him severely. And Barney is surprised that he is a historian. He is thinking of punishments, etc., as cruelly as a king can think. Immediately Tughlaq tells him, you didn't understand what he said. I understood. His meaning is this: he went to the place where there was famine. He took some land and bought some land, showed that he is a farmer, and took subsidy also from us. That's what he must have done. Yes, he says, I've done that. Yes. O king, he says, you cannot punish me as I'm a traitor, that I'm a traitor. I am the most loyal person. Because show me one person who has adopted every action of yours into words, and I've done it, he says. And he goes on explaining how we used it. How we used it. He says, I began to me, and there we came for copper coins. He says, to steal. He says, what is the use? What is the fun? Stealing is not profitable. Instead, I started making coins. I started making your copper coins, but after that, I lost interest in it. Why? What happened was many others started doing it. There was no profit. It became very competitive. I gave it up. Then I came to know about this person, the great grandson of the Caliph. That's why I came there. But before that, he says one important thing. That is very important. He says, sir, my lord, I had to fill dead bodies with hay, skin hay, and dispose them and all that. All that was the job I was given. But he says, I learned the lesson of my life. I had a great realization. What is that great realization? I realized that this man faces death. And what is man? Skin and hay, grass, dry grass, that's all. When I realized it, he says, I got unimaginable peace of mind. After that, I was not shaken by anything. Please note, this moment of great realization, what he calls, is a moment of realization for Tughlaq also. That's why in the next scene itself, his death is shown. If not his death, at least his suicide. Or you can't say, it's not very obviously clear over there. So having said all this, he's trying to show this man that he's above him. He says, sir, do you think that you can catch me because I am a washerman? He says, yes. What do you mean? You are trying to act against my decisions? Do you think that I'll allow a washerman to catch me? His answer is absolutely witty, disarmingly witty, defeats the emperor in one word. He says, sir, whereas, do you think that ever a religious guru, a religious preceptor, teacher has washed so much as a washerman has done? Even a guru, religious guru, has not washed so much as a washerman has done. He has done much more. Tughlaq is floored, defeated. And he says, he is not a cheat. He is not a deceiver. He is not a thief. He is a great artist. Kalakara. He appreciates him. Now, look at 2 points here. I mentioned that in a game there are rivals. And you need that sportsman spirit. A loser should have the sportsman spirit to appreciate the winner. And the winner should have the sportsman spirit to appreciate the loser mutually. And suddenly, the sportsman spirit in him comes up to the surface. Tughlaq, he appreciates him. You are great. You are not a thief. You are an artist. But remember, now there is not just that point. We may appreciate Tughlaq for his appreciation of this man, but there's one important thing in it. This Aziz has caught him, cornered the emperor, cornered Tughlaq in such a manner that Tughlaq cannot do anything. He says, sir, you cannot punish me. Lord, you cannot punish me. Your honor, you cannot punish me. You cannot punish me because in the presence of hundreds of people, you have fallen at my feet. recognized me, respected me, honored me, as if I am the great grandson of the Khalifa. Now you cannot say, I'm going to put him to death because they deceived me. If you do so, he says, people will laugh at you. They will make fun of you. They will think, what a fool our emperor is. That is also there. Both things work together. He says he is a great artist, but Tughlaq has to save himself also there. He's able to save himself. That's why he says, okay, what do you want then? If you don't want to be punished, what do you want? He says, make me the chief of a province, the head of a province. Okay, if I do it, will you go? Yeah, I'm ready to go. And he says he will go. He says you should go half the way, and from there you should disappear. No one will know where Khalifa's great grandson went. He says, I'm an expert in disappearing like that. And please remember one thing. Azam, his friend, thief friend, wants to run away. He has brought 2 horses and all that. He says, otherwise we'll get killed and we'll get punished. He says, no, if you are caught, you'll not be punished. But that man doesn't listen. He said, go, you are a fool, you are a fool, you are a fool. But this man has won. And we see that this Tughlaq is cornered, or the best expression using the metaphor of the game is that he's checkmated. Checkmates him. Now there is a beautiful thing that's happening throughout the play. That is the development in the play. The play has within itself this dynamics. What is that dynamics? In chess, we know they move, the rivals move in each other's direction, opposite. If a soldier who is at the end of of the board, at one end of the board, moves on, escaping, getting killed, and is able to reach the other end, he suddenly becomes a minister, a powerful person. And after that, he is more powerful than anyone else. And that is what is shown here. This Aziz is a washerman, brilliant fellow, understands, gauges his opponent very well. That is the king himself. And he is moving beautifully with every move Tughlaq is making. And every move Tughlaq thinks that he is making very successfully. This fellow is defeating it there itself. He is overcoming that, surpassing that, and having escaped, eluded everything here, being elusive, he has reached the other end of the board and has become more powerful than the king. That is the game, the dynamics of the game. That's why, while presenting this game, producing it on the stage, they used to show a chessboard and all that, development, etc. And that's what has happened. And this is one thing. So he has won. But one important thing is this. Ultimately, he's teaching Tughlaq a lesson, facing death. He says it is his realization in life. Tughlaq realizes that it is also his realization. Shouldn't he? Aziz was his disciple, says Aziz. Aziz says that he was Tughlaq's disciple. And Tughlaq picks this solution in his life, which he has not been able to face. He has not been able to analyze properly that facing death is important from this. From that point of view, Aziz becomes Tughlaq's teacher. Tughlaq is his disciple. Tughlaq is his disciple. This interchange is also important here. Look at the way the game works all through. But one thing happens. Tughlaq plays and plays and plays, and he makes all sort of shows. It is very difficult for us to make out. He prays, he begs, he tries to understand, he repents, he regrets, he attacks, he gets attacked, he succumbs to people, falls at their feet. But a moment comes when we find it very hard to understand whether Tughlaq is genuinely expressing it or acting it. It's a bit difficult. There also in his character, his genuine role and his game overlap. Hard to understand. We have to read it again and again, and understand the game in our own way, from our own point of view. But the things that come out of the play are endless. That is why the play is alive even now, and it's alive forever. It is dynamic, which grows as we grow. With the growth of the reader, the play also grows within his mind. That is the wonderful concept of play and game in this play. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'm ready to share.
Thank you, sir. It was a very interesting, great learning and a useful session to everyone present. And this session is open for discussion now. I request students to post your questions, or everyone present here to post the questions in the chat box. So we have one question who says, how would you describe Tughlaq as a person in a word?
As a person in a?
In a word.
Okay.
Word.
Yeah. Now what happens is, now as I mentioned, Shakespeare brings his historical kings and queens, etc., down to the earth, and they experience life like human beings. But in Tughlaq's case, I felt that unless there is an element of power, it is difficult for a person to face situations as Tughlaq does. I'm not speaking of the levels of power, not that it should be the king, it should be the prime minister or minister, chief minister, etc. Some level of power is important. Otherwise, we may not face a situation like that, because we should remember one thing: what all Tughlaq does couldn't have happened if he was powerless. Hence, all his challenges are faced by a person who has some power. Without that power, you cannot face that sort of situation. A powerless person has to be as he is, that's all, as he has been asked to live. That's the difference. Hence, I feel, otherwise, the plight, the challenge, etc., especially the loneliness that one may suffer from, these are common man's problems. To that extent, he is in the world.
Thank you, sir. So,
Yeah.
Another question. A lot of people say that the play is a satirical critique of the political dynasty of the time. Many others disagree with this view. What is your take on this speculation?
Okay. What is that? Sarcasm, not sarcasm. What is that?
Okay, I will repeat that, sir. A lot of people, a critique of political dynasty of the time.
Yeah,
many others. Yeah, so it's
correct. It's a good question. I would like to suggest. To people, if they can read Kannada, to read an essay called Hucchanondige 30 Varsha. You see, it was staged. It has been staged in different languages, translated into different languages, Urdu, etc., English also. But obviously, that being originally in Kannada, it has had greater effect in Kannada. Now, there was C.R. Simha, who acted as Tughlaq for 30 years, about 200 or 300, many shows. And he was absolutely passionately involved in it. So much involved that when that rehearsal was going on, etc., even while sitting in the city bus, seems you would be thinking of that. And once he uttered a dialogue without his knowledge, it came out of him in a very powerful way. And the lady sitting beside him thought that she was sitting with a madman, got down in the next stop and went away. He explains. There, this man has described, he acted in the role for 3 decades. When he began to act it, he was not even married. But when he ended in the sense, okay, in the later performances, etc., his son was acting as a watchman and all that. He says at different times, different dialogues have given him different meanings. One line, Tughlaq says, "Do you think I can be a king only because I am a king's son? Only because soldiers nod at what I say, can I say that, claim that I am a king?" And he says, what a rule, what a comment on dynastic rule. It was in 75, he says. In 75, Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. Congress was very powerful. And there was emergency also. In 1977, both Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi were defeated. And there he began to think, see, I am the king. If my father is the king, can I say that I am the king? One. Second, in 77, what happened? They lost. Then the dialogue comes, I can give an order and ask them to be loyal. I can pass an order and ask people to be loyal, but how can I win their confidence? So Indira Gandhi thought she would win, but she lost it. This. In 1984, he acted in the same role. They are speaking of this. The watchman of the fort says, sir, this whole this fort will not collapse against external attacks. It collapses because of its own inner attacks, internal attacks. That is treason. And he says in 1984, Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated by her own security men. And he speaks of this. So many things. And there he says this play has been, gathering new and fresh meanings. One more meaning, that was wonderful. He goes to the edge of the fort and tries to bend. There immediately the soldier, the watchman says, sir, your honor, you should not go to that extent. And Simha says, all these years I had thought that it meant don't go near. Not Simha, Prasanna says that. But here he says it suddenly had a different meaning. It meant that, sir, don't go to such extremities. If you do too much of your power, you are going to lose. In this way, at different parts, I don't know whether these were intended by the author or by the playwright, but such meanings come up because of the different situations. But we should know one thing, if a play has this sort of rich potential in it, it can respond to, it can vibrate to the changing situations. That's what we may think. Please read that essay.
Thank you, sir. So we have another question.
If I can answer.
Yes, yeah, there's a question from Pawan Kumar who says, everything is fair in war and love. Will this statement justify Tughlaq's character in this play?
Yeah, partly correct. Half of it I accept because Tughlaq is not in love there. So the question of love doesn't arise. The other one, war. Yeah, in war, what happens is, see, you have to win finally. If you have to win, you have to use different tricks. And that's what Tughlaq does. And we should know, while doing it, we should know that our opponent will also be using similar tricks against us. So if I say that I'll remain very honest with integrity, you will lose that song. Both opponents use the same tricks and one has to win. So to that extent, it may be accepted.
Thank you, sir. So we have a question from Aparna Sahu who says, what is the main source of information of the Tughlaq's dynasty?
I mentioned it, initially itself I mentioned it. See, you have plenty of sources actually. Many books are available and all that. But as far as Karnad is concerned, I mentioned two books you may remember. One is The History of Caravana of Turks, written by Ishwar Prasad. Second one is the Cambridge History of India and the writings of Ibn Battuta and Barni, and some books on Islam he had read. He might have read many more books. These were the sources. And I also mentioned some facts which he has used in his play. So that's the case. But we should know one thing, that all this information is just basic to have your outline, the sketch of a character or of a play. Finally, it has to develop based on your understanding of life and persons and human psychology.
Thank you, sir. So we have one question from Manzoor who says, share your views regarding George Orwell's statement, power corrupts an absolute power.
what happens is any power is, unless it is restrained by another string, it is likely to become corrupt. Questionable one. If power is questioned, there is always a hesitation in the mind of the powerful person while exercising his power. Hence, all kings used to be autocrats. There would be nobody to question them unless they had the conscience, or some people had fixed people against them. Now, in British democracy, we come across such things. I have forgotten the name of the prime minister, but he used to tell the opponent, it seems, please be questioning me. You please be questioning me. You question me so that I am on the alert. That's why we always say that in democracy, a ruling party is significant, but an equally, I should say, powerful opponent party is also important, or it's actually more significant. That's why it keeps the rulers, the ruling party, on its toes. That's very important. Otherwise, absolute power is bad anywhere.
Okay, thank you, sir. So one last question.
Sure.
We say, is Karnad's play Tughlaq replicates Basava from the play Taledanda?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a question which says, is Karnad's play Tughlaq?
Yeah, I got it. You see, in one sense, it is an extension, but the difference is this: here in a Taledanda, what happens? It's a historical moment, but in Tughlaq, it is a single person's play of things. So that being the case, that difference is there. I feel that difference is there, but I had not expected this sort of question. That's why I should say that I'm not well organized in my thoughts. But as far as political play is concerned, yes, there is an extension, but Taledanda has more social dimensions. Social undertones are more, caste, community, and those things are more there than in Tughlaq. That much I can say just now. Otherwise, I need a little time to think over that, refer to the text once again, and get back.
All right, thank you, sir. So one last question from Naganandini. History says Karnad's Sultan Tughlaq has many affinities with modern-day Jawaharlal Nehru. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree or not agree is not the question, but it has been mentioned over there because we know that Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru was always called a dreamer. He was considered to be a dreamer, not a realist. But you may remember there was a caricature, a cartoon drawn by Shankaran Pillai, in which Jawaharlal Nehru is shown to be painting a real rose flower, a real rose with rose color. So they were trying to pull his legs in that way. Many of his plans, many of his projects were considered, or his concept of affinity with China or Pakistan, etc., were considered to be sometimes unrealistically dreamy, unrealistic dreams. And it is mentioned, many times it has been mentioned in this play that Tughlaq has some such dreams. And those dreams are not followed by the others. That being the case, partly it's a reflection of this, this Nehru's dream era in India. It is taken in that sense. It's all interpretation, basically.
Thank you so much for being patient answering all our questions, sir. I request Dr. Padma Priya to please give away the vote of thanks.
So nice.
It is an honor to propose the vote of thanks this occasion. First of all, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks and warmth to our chief guest, Dr. Prakash MC, retired principal and writer, for gracing today's webinar. Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking and interesting presentation. I extend my sincere thanks to our Honorable Chairman, Dr. T. Somashekar. I would like to thank our esteemed Chief Operating Officer, Dr. K. Parthasarathy. I would specifically like to express gratitude to our principal, Dr. Jerome Xavier, for his constant support in conducting such useful webinars. I thank especially teaching fraternity, scholars, and students who have participated overwhelmingly and making the event a wonderful success. I would also thank our beloved HOD, Professor Geeta Ravi, for her guidance and moral support in all activities in the department. I am happy to express thanks to our faculty members to make this webinar a grand success. I thank the technical supporter, Mr. Chandan, for providing technical assistance. Once again, I thank all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.